Hey, everybody, welcome to FIST, or Pastor, have you seen this? That's our little acronym for this little segment where you send us internet content and we comment on it here from a Christian perspective and worldview. And hopefully you get enlightened by that. Maybe there's a conversation that starts for you. Maybe this helps you make more sense of Christianity. That's our whole goal in this. Now, keep in mind, I haven't seen this, so what follows is a very cold take based on just my interaction with it and all my background knowledge. Okay, so grace for my stumbling thoughts on this. And by the way, if you want to send us something, please do. So you send it to this address right here on the screen, social@ac3.org. And let's comment now on something one of you sent us about legislating morality. Can it be done? I don't know.
Non-Christians want to put on you. And yeah, I do say non-Christians because while I know that a lot of people who claim to be Christians are saying Christian nationalism is wrong, I truly question whether they've actually been born again if they can literally not vote for their Christian morals. But anyway, that's
neither. Yeah, let's stop there for a second. So, this is okay. So here's one of the most incoherent things that anyone will ever say to you about Christianity in the public sphere is this: you can't legislate morality. That is utterly incoherent. Why? Because all legislation is legislated morality. That's all it is. That's all it is. Every law that's on the books is that someone's view of the moral universe got codified for some moral purpose, right? And all of it built on somebody's moral framework. Now, the question, let me help them with their objection. What they're trying to say is there's a certain amount of morality, or how deep into your moral framework do you legislate? That's probably a better question. And I think Christians can agree to that. For example, do we move into the public sphere with our moral sense that killing is wrong, that taking innocent human life is wrong? I think that just makes sense. That relates to human flourishing across time and space and cultures. Do we move into the public space with a very nuanced view of legislating our Sabbath laws? Well, that's probably way more complicated because Christians themselves are very, very divided on how we ought to honor the Sabbath. Okay, so that makes sense then, right? It's not, do we legislate morality? All legislation is legislated morality. That's all that it is. All laws are legislated morality. It's just that how much of our worldview do we press into the legislation of the cultures in which we're a part? So yes, there's some subtlety there, but should Christians, as they enter into that public sphere, bring their informed Christian conscience? I think he's saying, of course you should. And if you think you shouldn't, in other words, you shouldn't vote or interact in the public sphere in a way that's reflective of your Christian values, he says, are you even a Christian? I think that's a good question.
Here nor there. I want you guys to understand that morality should be legislated.
Okay, so
can be legislated, and in fact is the only thing legislated.
Hey, I just said that.
I want you to think about this. Every single law that we have tells you
I totally stole this thunder.
Not to do something wrong because it's not right. That's legislating morality. That non-Christians want to put on you. And
I'm sorry, I totally stole this thunder. So we're both making the exact same point. So regarding the larger question of Christian nationalism, that probably is a really, really controversial way of saying something that all Christians have always believed, which is that in this public sphere, we should pray, we should participate, and we should submit. And these are biblical injunctions for how Christians ought to interact in the public sphere. And so if we're going to participate, we're bringing our Christian values into, let's say, public positions that we can hold. Christians can be mayors, Christians can be governors, Christians can be presidents. And so why would we not rule from an informed Christian conscience if we believe that God is the God of all people and that he has everybody's human flourishing in mind? Of course we should. So I think that this idea of Christian nationalism tends to fall on people like Christians want to bring a theocratic system of the Old Testament into the modern world. And that's not it. Now, the Christian worldview assumes that Christians are going to be in every nation, right? In every nation of the world. And as such, they should submit to the governing authorities because the governing authority is instituted by God. And that they should also then participate in these organs of civil control because it is of God to have to not have anarchy, right? So Christians aren't anarchists. That's why we can get behind civil government, even civil government that is not explicitly Christian. But as we've gone through history, as we know, Christianity can sometimes be a victim of its own success. It's so is so successful at making disciples that the entire milieu of a culture now becomes explicitly Christian. Christianity starts to inform the very structures of that society. And we live in such a society. We're not the only ones. Let's make that abundantly clear. America is not the only place where that's happened. It happened in the Holy Roman Empire. It happened in many nations of Western Europe. But nevertheless, so now are those Christian nations? Are they Christian nationalists? Well, there was always a division between the civil powers and the church powers, and America brought that to a real fine point. I think in an effort to protect the church from the dictates of civil government and not the other way around. But nevertheless, if you are entering into that civil arena, which we all belong to, whether you're Christian or non-Christian, and you bring your Christian conscience, then you are in some sense hoping that some part of your nation is Christianized. Is that Christian nationalism? Okay, if so, I'm a big fan, right? But if we enter into that Christian or into that public space in order to use the force of government to make people into followers of Jesus by fiat from the top down, I am not a fan. But I don't think that that's being advocated. I mean, there's nobody's really advocating that except maybe some kooky fringe. So there's no return to the Old Testament theocracy that's advocated for in Christianity. No one wants that. But as has been the habit of celebrated Christians of old, we should feel no compunction about entering into the public sphere. First of all, to be the best citizens of any state, because we surrender to God, authority that brings order, God's into order. And B, we participate, because already in the first century, there were members of Caesar's household that were followers of the Lord Jesus Christ. So we could take up those positions as followers of Christ, bring our informed conscience. And then lastly, finally, to pray. And we are praying for a state that enables the church to be able to live out its life in peace and holiness and freedom. So, yeah, you call that Christian nationalism? I'm a big fan. If you mean imposing a theocratic system where the mullahs get to dictate public policy, not a fan. Okay, that's Islam, right? And we're done with that. All right, so that's me. Oh, that was a hot take. That cold take turned hot real quick, didn't it? Okay, so you tell me what you think about what I just said in the comments. Love to hear from you, and send us your content to this social@ac3.org, and we'll see you next time on Pastor, Have You Seen This?